All right, well, hi everybody. It's time to start wet sanding. On the driver's side, I had better luck, I think maybe because I had better lighting. You can still see there's quite a bit of texture, and like I said, my paint jobs are not very good, or this is actually my very first one. So a lot of texture on the horizontal surfaces, or slightly horizontal surfaces. I had better luck, probably because I was paying more attention, or it laid down a little bit better. On the hood, generally better. You could still see some dry spots, or not dry spots, but texture. Driver's door, this side came out better, and then moving over here, some overspray and such. So ultimately, for those of us that are new, this is a part of the process. I already started wet sanding a little bit, and here you could see the texture probably quite a bit better. I'm starting with 1500 wet. I'm going to go to 2000 wet, and then we're going to go to 3000, and we'll see if I end up using a DA or not. What I may end up having to do is, this process is really slow. Starting by hand and breaking through the surface of the clear coat is really, really slow. So what I may end up doing, and I'll show you if I decide to go that route, is take a 1500 on a DA, break the surface first, and then come back and continue to wet sand. On these sections here where I've got some texture, trying to be careful and use wet sanding. This side I spent probably an hour to do that section at 1500. You can still see I still have some stuff here. Have to do the C-pillar here. I'm not worried about these sections here because they get covered with trim. This section here, there's a lip that comes across from the window seal, but I am going to try to clean this up a little bit more here. But this is the slow process. So I'm going to do this here. You could still see plenty to do. And I forgot I have to take the fenders out and do those also. So I was debating on putting everything together and working on it while it's assembled on the vehicle. But I think I definitely want to do this before I put all the seals on. So that's what we'll be doing. Here's just another view of the hood. You can see quite a bit. I mean, it looks worse than it feels, but and then look, goes from here to reasonable. So that's just my technique of how I was spraying, and you could see that there's this texture actually continues all the way across. So but we've got plenty of clear coat on here to work with, and so I'll bring you along for the ride and see what kind of mistakes we make. On the front here, there are some visible sections, and I don't remember what the orange peel looks like there. So one thing at a time. All right, so here's what I'm using. And what I've seen is when I get to about this level, especially with these corners, I switch to a soft pad, one of these soft flexible pads. And I have a little squirt bottle, and I'm just going to do this area here just to show how slow this is, but there's really no way to go faster. And I should get my air line because there's no good way to see when it's done. So let me do that, and I'll be right back to dry it off so you can see when it's all finished. Continuing on the tailgate here, on this piece, I've used this rigid block about I don't know, 4 times. I go that way and then come back that way, and you can really see, you know, the metal's not super straight. I mean, it's pretty straight, but at this point I'm going to switch to the soft block, and so I have a 1500 grit piece on a rigid block and a 1500 grit piece of paper on the soft block, just waiting. And so just to save a little bit of time, and this I'm just going to go around the corners here and, you know, sand, I guess. So far this little strip has taken about 5 minutes. So I'm going to try to get rid of as much of this texture as I can before going to 2000 grit later on, which won't be today and likely not tomorrow either. So anyway, watching somebody sand is like watching paint dry. So let me get to it. I'm going to work on the tailgate area here, all of this, and I'll kind of keep an eye on the time and see how long it takes. I'm not going to do a time lapse, but you get the idea. I'll switch to a little wet rag. It's just easier to hold and wipe. And then I will get my air hose and show you how slow this is. I could probably start with something other than 1500 based on how rough the texture is, and I probably should. I'm just a little bit nervous about taking off too much clear coat and getting too aggressive on the finish, so I'd rather have it take some extra time. Sorry, headphone users. So anyway, I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna work this belt line all the way around the vehicle, and then I'm gonna slowly start moving down. I think when I get to these larger panels, and I already tried a little bit, I want to break the surface up first with my DA, but I only have 2000 grit until tomorrow, so I'll have plenty to do tonight with wet sanding by hand on both sides on these kind of curvy areas, and we'll just keep it rolling, I guess. So let's do this section here. The problem is I also don't remember at this point what has, like, where's the trim go. I know the trim goes around some of the corners here, but on the tailgate I just don't remember anymore. It's been, this project's taken so long, way too long. You get the idea. So let's do this little corner here. Let's see if you can, Let's see how we zoom in here. Let's see that. Okay, this corner here. Maybe let me set you up like that. All right. Wet. Let's see, after a couple of minutes with the soft block. Not too bad. A little bit more here, and then I'll just keep moving my way down and try to finish up the tailgate tonight with 1500 grit. Well, after killing myself for hours with wet sanding, I got to 1500. I got most of one side of the vehicle done. It's taken several hours, but it's still not where I think it should be. I don't really have a reference, so I got some of this stuff. It's a 1500 grit for my DA. It's very fine film. So I've been going over it with 1500 dry, and even that is really, really slow. I'll show you just briefly. Like, here's a spot, you could see it on camera. Right there. Alright, so I'll go over that just on camera for a little bit with this 1500 grit, just so you see how slow it is. And so, yeah, it's pretty slow. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna finish up this side with doing it dry this way. I am gonna ultimately go back to wet sanding 1500 grit just to finish it up. These areas here like that. And then of course we've got this and the hood and the fenders. I'm not sure what to do about the roof yet. So I also do have these. These are 800 grit discs. I'm a little bit afraid to try those. I mean, I could go 800 then 1500. I might try it on an inconspicuous spot somewhere just to see if it'll speed things up. Maybe on a fender. Certainly not on a door. So I'm gonna play around with this and keep grinding. As I was saying, I'm gonna leave the rest of these to do by hand. I'm just afraid that I'm gonna break through on some more edges. So do these leading edges here. I'm gonna leave this because most of that gets covered by the front bumper. Clean up some of this. So 1500 wet, 2000 wet, and then I have a 3000 on 3000 wet on a DA. We'll see. We'll see how far I get and how ambitious I am. But I don't enjoy this at all. It's nerve-wracking. It's tiring. I was really hoping to be done with the sanding after all the paint was done, but since I don't know how to paint, this is the result. So also, this is the polish I'm going to be using right here, but we'll get to that later. Whew. Okay. I think 1500 dry is done. I'm going to go over everything with a 1500 wet block. Clean that up. Then 2000 wet with a soft sponge. I think after 1500, I don't think I'm going to be using a hard block. So 1500 wet. I did break through in two spots. One is right there. So I'm going to mix up some blue and clear together and just kind of smash it in there. Maybe with a tiny little brush, and then sand it down. And I think right there. So, okay. This I'm going to leave to do by hand because I don't want to screw up the hood. So, anyway, a lot of surface. I'm going to leave, again, these. Nope, 800 is too much. As I was working to get the 800 scratches off, I feel like I got a little bit of blue dust from over here, probably in the corners. So I'm going to stick with 1500 grit and just grind through. So what does sanding with 2000 grit look like? Like this. It's actually kind of hard to tell whether or not you're making any progress, because the 1500 grit scratches are really hard to see. So I just kind of go by whatever, you know, when it feels like it's as smooth as everything else around it, then I move on. I did the hood, the fenders, front door, rear door. Have this to go, tailgate, and the other side. Oh, and I got to figure out what to do about the roof. I haven't touched that. I might just buff it. We'll see. I got to crawl up there and see what it looks like. But it goes 2000, or the jump between 1500 and 2000 is not bad. I'm using a soft block, and I don't know, seems to be going okay. I'm gonna wash this off before I move to the next step and see really where I am. But I'm gonna be moving on to the tailgate next and work my way all the way around. All right, a little bit of an update. So everything's been wet sanded 1500, then dry sanded 1500 with a DA to get rid of the linear scratches from the wet sand. Then 2000 grit wet sand, then just finished up with 2000 grit DA. Okay, now what I'm going to do is 3000 grit wet. I'm going to try this stuff, and hopefully after that I'll be ready to polish. You can see there's a little bit of gloss coming back. This is after 2000 grit on the DA. I haven't washed it, I just wiped it down. So let me set up the 3000 grit wet, and let's see how it turns. Let's see how it turns out. All right, quick update. Looks like a war zone. but I'm making progress. Everything is done to 1500. I did it with DA, which helped, and then I went back over everything with 1500 wet, just by hand with a block. There are areas that I'm not going to touch. I still have to clean up some of the details. Have to figure out a way to get in here. Yeah, not sure how to do that yet. But other than that, I think I'm pretty much done. This area here gets covered by the bumper. That's Raptor lined down here, so we don't have to worry about it. So next is 2000 grit. I'm going to do that by hand first, and then come back over it with a dry DA. So 2000 wet, and then 2000 dry with a DA to get rid of any of the linear scratches. And then we're probably going to go to 3000 wet on a DA. So let's see how we carry on. Okay, I'm just going to do this quadrant right here. And hope for the best. Here we go. Let's see what that looks like. What I'm hoping to see is no linear scratches. And certainly looks smooth. The light makes it look, that light makes it look like there's shine. I wouldn't say that, but here's a comparison to the 2000 grit dry. Come on. Here we go. 2000 grit dry. I mean, it's dusty still, but you get the idea. So 2000 grit dry to 3000 grit wet. So I might do this one more time, but let me finish this section here the same 3 or 4 passes as I did that side, so that at least I don't lose track. And then we'll just keep it going that way. And hopefully I'll get to a point where I can start buffing a little bit. Okay, the hood is done. There's reflection, but there's definitely, it's muted. And, when I shine a light on it like that, you could, it's not great. So what I'm going to try next, I'm going to try something. I'm going to take the interface pad off. I'm going to take this guy off, and I'm just going to go direct. I'm going to get a new 3000 grit. I'm just going to put that on and see if I might get a little bit better distribution of pressure, like here. I don't like that. So let's see what that does. So I'm going to work this section with just the pad, or no interface pad, okay? So let's see how we do. All right, let's see. You know, Harbor Freight's probably not the best choice for all your sanding needs, but it's got to dry out. I'll bring it back when that's dry. All right, well, on camera, I guess you can see a little bit better than in person. This section here, the right side, I did twice as much as I did here, and I can start to see some glossiness there on camera. You see a little bit of reflection right around there. So I don't really know how far I'm supposed to go with the 3000 grit, so I'll do this section again, and then I think I'm just going to keep going, because the polish that I'm using is supposed to be good from 1500 and up. So I'll just even this out and then continue. And I might pick one section that I might do some extra on, just to see, you know, how far are you really, how far can you get with just 3000 grit wet. So let me continue over here. I'm not gonna show the rest, but I'll show you the hood once it's all done. So let's review where we are on the body. There's some reflection starting to come. That is with the 3000 grit. I wiped it down pretty well, and I spent about 2 or 3 minutes per door. I mean, in person, it doesn't look like there's a lot of shine or anything, but it's starting to come back. Again, I don't know how far I'm supposed to go with the 3000 grit, so I'm just trying to make it so that I can't see scratches, essentially. So I've got a little bit more work to do up here, but I don't know, I guess, you know, I've seen a lot of videos where guys will, you know, do this process, and it just looks so good by comparison to this. So clearly it's not the product that they're using that makes it so much better. It's just that they're that much more skilled. But what are you going to do? So I'm going to go over this section a little bit more, this whole rear quarter panel, and continue to work my way around. Just for reference, here's what the tailgate looks like now. That'll be next. So we'll have a good before and after. And once I make my way all the way around, then I can decide, you know, do I want to do another round before polish? So let's see how this cleans up, and let me finish up. And once I'm done with the entire body, at least one full round, then I'll come back and you guys drop your comments and let me know. What is it supposed to look like at 3000 grit? Okay, everybody, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I think I'm going to call the sanding officially done. As a reminder, started with 1500. I started wet sanding by hand. It took a while. I did that on these smaller surfaces. Then I went to 1500 on a DA. Then I went to 2000 by hand wet sanding. Then I went to 2000 on a DA, and then ultimately finished with 3000 wet sand or damp sanding on a DA. I still have some, I don't know if it'll focus. There's some scratching still, but I tested it out and I think it'll be okay. So I'm gonna wrap the video here, I think, because the next one is going to be all about buffing. I tried to take some 2000 grit and maybe just by hand push through and get a couple of spots that I missed. Oh, one other thing I have to do, I found a spot, 2 spots where I broke through again here. So there's one here and one here. So I'm going to put a little bit of paint and clear mixed, let that dry overnight, and then just sand it, and I think it'll be okay. So next time around, we're going to start buffing. Also, I took a look at the roof, and I'm not going to sand it. I'm just going to buff it, and it'll just be a little bit better than it is right now. So I think it's, at some point, it's got to be good enough. So I think that's it. This video is a bit out of order in terms of sequences, but there are 20 or 30 different clips, and I probably misaligned a couple of them. But thanks for sticking around. Hopefully, we're getting close.